welcome to episode 18 of the Yarn to Table podcast. My name is Celeste, and this is a podcast about my knitting life as well as my other general making type life. If this is your first time watching me, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to check me out. I really hope that you enjoy my podcast. And if you do, I hope that you will hit the subscribe button so that you can join me here every single Monday to talk about crafty things. And if you are a returning viewer, of course, I want to thank you so much for continuing to watch, tell other people about my podcast, hit that thumbs up button to help other people find me as well, and for all of your awesome participation here in the comments and in the Ravelry group, and with all of our fun cals and giveaways and on Instagram and everything. I love hearing from you guys, and I'm so glad that you continue to come back and chat with me week after week. I should mention that you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as @CelesteFull, and you can find details on any of the projects that I mention on my projects page on Ravelry, as well as a link to the groups, the Yarn to Table group. You can also find direct links to these podcasts from the projects. Each project will have a listing of blog posts that it is referenced in. So if you see a project on there and you want to see the podcast episode or the several episodes that it was featured in, you can find it that way. So as I said, there is a Ravelry group for the podcast, which you should definitely join if you're interested in getting more involved with the cals and the like. You can find the link for it in the doobly-doo, but you can also find it just by searching for Yarn to Table in the Ravelry groups tab. We have 2 knit-alongs going on currently and one that I am going to announce a winner for today. So the cal that has come to an end is the New Socks cal, which was my very, very first cal to ever host. And I want to thank you guys for all of your enthusiasm and your participation with this cal. I think it was an appropriate cal for my first time hosting because it was all about trying new things and new sock techniques. And we do have one winner to announce, which was I chose this by random number generator, of course, and it was number 21. Your screen name is The Zensha, which I will pop up here on the screen in case I'm pronouncing it weird or in a way that you don't recognize yourself. The Zensha from Croatia, and she actually knitted 4 different pairs of socks for this knit along, which is awesome. I'm so glad that you won, given that you were so involved. And the pair that she won for was her very first pair of lace socks. So congratulations, the Zensha. You have won your choice of one of these 2 beautiful hand-dyed skeins that were done by Andy of 10,000 Stitches. And this one is the colorway Lilac Bush, and this one is Peony Pops. And you can see the first is a lovely lilac tonal, and the second is very similar but with all these lovely speckles of red running through it. So Andy was so kind and generous to donate these to me a while ago, back when I first started the cal. She is a friend and a wonderful host of her own awesome podcast, and just was very, very generous. She actually dyed those inspired by my aesthetic, which I thought was so sweet. And it was so interesting that she named them after lilac and peony, because those are 2 of my favorite flowers, and in fact they are things that I plant in my own garden. I have bushes of both. So I love both of these skeins, and I'm going to be totally thrilled with whichever one I'm keeping for myself, and I'm going to go ahead and let you choose which one you would like. So congratulations again. Make sure to message me on Ravelry letting me know which skein you would like and giving me your posting information, and I will get that sent out to you as soon as possible. Now, as I mentioned, we have 2 other cals that are still going on. The first is the Great Unravel 2017. This is our unravel along, where you find a sweater and repurpose the yarn into something new. There are details and all of the rules in the Ravelry group on the thread for it. And I am co-hosting this with Caitlin of Wool Jewel and with Taylor of Wool Needles Hands. And this is running through June 17th. So you do still have time to unravel something and repurpose it. However, we have discussed that we might extend the deadline. So that's not official yet, but just keep that in mind if you're a little worried about making the deadline, that it might be extended. And also let me know if you are in favor of that, because it hasn't been officially decided. But I did get an Instagram message from Taylor about it recently, so I think that might be happening. And the other one I am co-hosting with Anna of the Dunkelgrün podcast, and this is our summer garment cal, which is all about knitting a summer garment. Again, the details and rules for that you can find in the Ravelry group under that thread. I don't like to go through them every single week because I know it can get boring if you listen regularly. But if you are interested, make sure that you check out the rules so that you can pick something that qualifies. And this is running through August 31st. And there's, you can knit multiple items just like with the new socks cal. And both of these cals are open to double dipping. And in fact, we encourage double dipping. I myself, as well as Anna, are both double dipping into each of them and knitting summer garments from yarn that we unraveled from thrifted sweaters. So double dipping, totally encouraged. If you're curious, today I am drinking Raspberry Zinger, just unsweetened. I rarely sweeten my tea, and it kind of matches with my whole pink thing that I have going on at the moment. Every moment of my life, who am I kidding? Okay, so now that we've talked cals, let's talk finished objects. Some of you may have noticed that I am wearing a little hand knitted item, and if you follow me on Instagram, you have probably seen this already. I posted about it twice. This is a gorgeous little beret that I made for the Mauve Along, which is currently going on. I believe it runs through the end of June, and this is co-hosted by Kristen of Woolen Vine Yarns and the Yarngasm podcast, as well as Shauna of Adelaide Cottage. So you can see this has a lovely lace brim and the nice kind of visible detail of the spiraling and the decreases, and that little classic beret kind of little pop of I-cord right there. So this pattern is called Molly, and it is by Alana Dakos, better known as Never Not Knitting. And the yarn is from Little Bean Loves, and it is her like classic sock base. Can't remember exactly what she calls it, like standard sock or classic sock or something. And it is in the colorway Hermione, which is a very lovely tonal mauve. I love the way that this knit up, that I think that this design really shows off a tonal very well. Alana actually designed it to be solid or striped, and I think the stripes are like a little more intense than a look that I was going for, but I feel like the tonal kind of strikes that balance of sort of showing what's neat about a striped beret while still being very subtle. So I knitted this, I started out actually on double points because the brim is knit in a smaller size needle than the rest of it. And I didn't have needles that small other than double points. So I just started with some like crappy wooden double points that I happen to have. And then when I sized up to the larger needle, which I want to say was like a US 3, it's on my project page though, if you want to know. I switched to a 16-inch cable interchangeable set, my ChiaoGoo interchangeables. And then once I started to decrease, I eventually switched over to Magic Loop. I do not love moving from circular to Magic Loop only because it's not super seamless, and so there's sort of this, like this area where the stitches are just pulled a little bit. It's very hard as you're making that transition to get everything, you know, it's hard to keep everything smooth and even in terms of tension, if that makes sense. But I think it still looks nice. And the only real problem that I had with this, after I blocked it and I had it blocking out on a dinner plate, I noticed that these stitches at the top had come loose somehow, which was crazy because I threaded the end of the yarn through like 3 stitches or however many there were, and then I put it back in, and then I wove it all through, and all I can think of is that I somehow managed to not catch all of the stitches when I threaded it through them or something, because they were coming out. And so this is actually a bit shorter by about 1 row than it should be, as part of my sort of fix. And I suppose I could have just unwound the whole thing and really tried to fix it perfectly, but I thought it looked okay. And I had just finished, and you know, it was already blocking, and it was wet, and I wanted it to just be finished. So I kind of went for the quick fix of just scooping up the loose ends and making it work, and tying them on the inside to make sure they were okay. So there's that. Not completely perfect, but perfect enough for me. I love this hat. I have been wanting to knit myself a beret for a long time. It's a style of hat that I really enjoy to wear. I think it can be nice in the wintertime, but it can be nice just as like a bit of an accessory as well. Now, I don't have any new whips to show you, but I do have exciting progress to show you on the garments that I'm working on at the moment. And technically this is a brand new thing you haven't seen before, so there you go. The first one is my Floam cardigan. I still have it just in this like Janky Theory Mugler canvas tote. I don't know what to tell you. I did order a sweater size project bag because I saw one that I really liked on Etsy. So we'll talk about that when it comes here, when it gets here. It could be a while because it's coming from Germany. But until then, I'm just gonna be rolling with it, unless I finally get it together enough to make myself a dang project bag, which I really do need to do. But you know, I need to do a lot of things. Okay, so this is exciting. I actually haven't knit on this much. I don't think I've knit on it at all this past week, but I knit on it the week before. And of course, I'm coming to you after a 2-week break because once again, I had some kind of family stuff going on. Last weekend, I spent all of Saturday with my in-laws and all of Sunday with my immediate family for birthdays and just various things. So there was a bit of a gap. So I don't think I've knit on this at all this past week, but the week before, I went ahead and finished the body of it. So exciting. And started the first sleeve. Oh my goodness, you guys. So the sleeve itself is just in the regular 1x1 rib and not this lovely fisherman's rib. So if you haven't seen this before, this cardigan is knit seamlessly from the top down, and the collar is in a plain 1x1 rib. The sleeves, the raglan sleeves, are in a plain 1x1 rib, but the body starts in 1x1 and then transitions into this fisherman's rib, which is a double thick texture that's created almost like a brioche, where you knit every row twice. So every row becomes double thick. And then it has a little band of regular 1x1 at the bottom. And in the front, it has pockets. So let's talk pockets. These guys were fun. Okay, so obviously you've got like the hole for the pocket, which I think I had the last time you saw it. Since then, I have knit the actual back of the pocket. So this is the inside. Here's the outside. You can see the hole, and there's the pocket. And obviously, this is going to get stitched down. But they ask you to do that after you block it. So that's why it hasn't been done yet. But you get an idea of what it's going to look like. This cardigan is designed by Justina Lorkowska, and it is done out of Quince & Co. Owl in the colorway Tido, which is an undyed colorway, and it is a worsted weight 50-50 wool and alpaca blend. Absolutely scrumptious. I love knitting with this yarn, and I can't tell you, when you take a squishy yarn like this and you do a fisherman's rib or probably like a brioche or anything like that, it becomes just the squishiest thing ever. I mean, I'm very, very excited to have this off my needles and be wearing it. And I know you're probably like, if you're so excited, how come you have 1.5 sleeves left and you haven't knit on it in a week? That's a very good question. I mean, I'm really excited about my other garment that I'm working on, and obviously this hat. So I'm excited about everything, and you can't do it all at once, I guess, is my only answer. But this is going to be great. When it is done, it means that I can wear it, and it means that I can start another cardigan, which is very, very exciting for me because I have some hedgehog fibers burning a hole in my pocket that wants to be a cardigan, as I talked about last week. I can't tell you how much fun this was to knit, and I know that sounds crazy because it's like an entire cardigan of 1x1 rib. Listen, I didn't think I liked 1x1 rib either. I'm not going to promise that if you pick up this cardigan, it's going to make you like it. But somehow that's what happened to me. Like, I don't know how to explain it. I will say that it's not the same as when you're doing a sock tension 1x1. Like, I feel like that's part of why this might have not felt like such a torture, is I'm so used to doing fingering weight sock tension 1x1 ribs for cuffs on socks and twisted. And this is just, it feels like it flies by compared to that, obviously, because it's worsted weight. You know, but also recently I kind of figured out a slightly different way to like angle my knitting needles that made even twisted rib not as torturous, which I would love to show you guys and talk about on the podcast, because it's probably the kind of thing that some of you are like, yeah, duh, that's what I do. But I sure as heck didn't do it for years, so I want to share it. So we'll talk about that at some other point when I actually am knitting a sock and I can maybe show it to you. My sock knitting at the moment is very much taking a backseat to garment knitting. I'm just enthusiastic about garments. I've always been a process knitter, and lately it's not that I'm flipping and becoming totally like a product knitter at all, but I am very, very much embracing the product point of view and kind of recognizing the joy of that side of knitting, because even though I've knit for almost 2 decades, I don't wear a lot of hand knits. And I know that sounds so crazy, but like, I knit so many things that I gave away. I knit so many things that I just got rid of at some point because I just didn't care. I would like knit things that I just didn't love, and I was never a garment knitter, And right now, I am just feeling the enthusiasm for garments. I don't know if it's like Caitlin has got me living vicariously through her, because her podcast, Wool Jewel, she like identifies as a garment knitter and has beautiful, beautiful garments, and really gives you kind of the confidence to be like, it's not like a one sweater per year situation. Like, you can go from garment to garment if you want and just knit awesome garments for yourself. And right now I'm kind of feeling that. It's not that I'm not going to knit socks. I always have socks going on. I am thinking I'm going to officially put my Easter egg socks into hibernation so that I can pull them out next spring and possibly be enthusiastic about them again. And also I can devote my vanilla sock knitting, any of that comes up, to my husband's socks and try to get those off the needles, and then, hopefully get a sock on there that I'm more excited about. But it's not that I burn myself out on sock knitting entirely. It's just that, like I said, there's only so many hours in the day. And I think part of the reason I was going on socks was I wanted to have enough socks that I could wear hand knit socks all the time. And I'm kind of at that point now. Plus it's summer, so I'm not wearing socks every single day. And what I really want right now is cardigans and tops and pullovers and things like that. And so that's what I'm feeling like knitting. But I'm definitely getting into the sort of product knitter, selfish knitter space, which is the polar opposite of the way that I knit for a very long time. And I think I'm just sort of exploring it and finding that balance for myself. I think we all fluctuate a lot in our knitting and any kind of creative process, with like what you're into at the moment. And you shouldn't get too bogged down by like defining yourself or, having some outdated idea about what you want to do. I think you should just follow your bliss. And I'm trying to do that more, which is hard for me because I'm a big planner, but I'm trying to do that more. Like I mentioned, Andy of 10,000 Stitches, who donated the lovely yarn for the cowl. She has a podcast that's, her sort of like brand of it is small scale knitting. And that's very much how she's always knit, is small things. But right now she's knitting a sweater for the first time. And I think it's so awesome that she's like embracing that simply because she's curious about it and she wants to do it, and not feeling like she has to only knit socks and gloves because, that's the definition of her podcast and that's what the people are here to see and that's what she's always done and that's who she is or whatever. Like, you should know yourself, but you shouldn't be afraid to try new things. So anyway, that's my long-winded way of letting you know what's going on with my whips right now and why I'm working on 2 garments and you haven't seen a sock in a long time. So let me show you the other garments, shall I? Living in my Fringe Supply field bag is my project for the Great Unravel, which is my Ayla tank. Hey, it's looking like a tank, isn't it? Or at least like a bra top. Okay, so if you have not been following along and you have not seen on my Instagram or in my vlog where I found the sweater that I unraveled for this was a cardigan that was white with black flowers sort of painted onto it after it had been knitted. And I was very excited about that because I was inspired by sock blanks, and I knew that when I unraveled it, I was going to get this lovely, fully speckled situation. What I did not anticipate, but is even more exciting, is that some were going to be more speckled than others, which means I can do a sort of an ombre effect, going from more speckled to less speckled. So let's see what to talk about first. The yarn itself is about a sport or a fingering weight, and it is a cotton poly blend, and it's a ribbon. It has been pretty splitty. That's just a bit of the nature of working with ribbon yarn. I had the same situation when I did my little dragon that you have seen in the podcast just previous to this. I do think this is less splitty than that was, and this is definitely like a tighter gauge. Not what the yarn makes itself, but like the fibers that go into this yarn it's tighter, so it's a little less splitty than that. I'm curious to see those are the only, other than like actual ribbon, which I have knit with experimentally when I was like in high school because I loved knitting with like wire and all kinds of random things. I think this and that other yarn are the only like ribbon style yarns I've ever knit with, but I do have a garment quantity of Quince & Co. Kestrel, which is an Aran weight linen. I think it's a linen. Yeah, I think it's a linen ribbon that I have for another garment that I want to make later this year, like a t-shirt top type thing. Actually, if I have time to actually get to my designer spotlight today, you will be seeing it in the designer spotlight, so fingers crossed that happens. But anyway, I'm curious to see if that's splitty, because that's like a very high quality yarn. This isn't so splitty that it's like terrible, but it's just, it is what it is. Now what I'm making is the Ayla tank, which is designed by Isabel Kramer, and it's from Quince & Co.'s ebook Sparrow 2017 or 2016, which was all garments made with their fingering weight silk yarns, Sparrow. So it's going to be like a plain tank with a lace edging at the very bottom. This, I'm having to sort of make some guesses about the gauge, because the pattern is written for a yarn that actually will shrink up when it blocks instead of blooming. Most of the time things bloom a lot. In fact, one thing I forgot to tell you about this hat, my gauge is always a little bit loose, and I'm not trying to tighten it because like I already have carpal tunnel syndrome, so I'm just trying to I just make adjustments and I live my life. And honestly, it's kind of nice to have a slightly loose gauge because I oftentimes have to size down in terms of the size that I'm making for like a sweater or something, which is cool because I'm a women's large, and if I can get away with making a women's medium, that's going to knit up faster than a women's large because it's going to be fewer stitches. So it's not a problem. You just kind of have to do some math. So for this hat, I checked my gauge and it was definitely too big. And on something this small, you really want your gauge to be on point because nobody wants a big old hat that doesn't fit their head. And I particularly did not want this to have like a slouchy hat feel. I wanted it to have that chic beret look. So I sized down, which meant knitting the child size. This is a child size hat, technically. Which is nice because it knit up fast. I mean, you saw it. I started it last weekend and I finished it several days ago, so it only took a few days. But anyway, when I bound off, I was a little bit worried. It seemed kind of small. Like I tried it on and I was like, this is a little small. But I knew it would bloom, and I tried to like cool it. And like the moment I got it out of the water, before I even let it dry, I could tell it had just beautifully opened up and become like so much larger. And that is what wool does. But apparently, at least according to the gauge instructions on the Ayla, silk is kind of different, which I'm trusting them because they said, you know, this is the gauge such and such before blocking, such and such after blocking, and it was smaller. I kept rereading it, thinking I was reading it wrong, not reading it wrong. This is not going to do that. It's probably not going to bloom very much either. I mean, it's a cotton poly. It's probably going to stay pretty much the size that it is. So I am just, wherever possible, paying attention to row counts and doing the math and things like that instead of measuring with a tape measure, because in terms of inches, I don't think this is going to be pre-blocking what the sparrow yarn would be pre-blocking. So that's the only thing that's, I'm having to pay too much attention to. Other than that, very simple pattern. And at this point, I'm just in the black hole of stockinette. I did the top. This was all done seamlessly. So there was a lot of placing on hold and taking off hold, and that's not the most fun. But now I've joined. I have about this much worked after the join, and it's just stockinette all the way around with a row of purl bumps on the sides to give almost like a faux seam look. I had the sides marked with my lovely little hexagon stitch markers that I showed you. So I obviously started with the more speckly. I'm now into some of the medium speckly, and I'm going to end with the less speckly. The one flaw to this plan is that, so this is the front, here's the back. Substantially less black. And that is because the way that this works is I sort of knit the front, and then I had to go pick up and knit the back. And I kind of ran out. And I didn't run out exactly evenly because I wasn't to the stockinette all the way around part. I was just knitting back and forth on the back. But it's okay. I mean, it's not, the back doesn't look bad by itself and the front doesn't look bad by itself. They don't exactly match, but I just don't think that's a big deal. And better the front to have a more dramatic ombre, because that's what people will be seeing, especially since a lot of times they'll probably be wearing a blazer or something with it. When you're doing something like this, unraveled yarn and speckling and like just trying to do an ombre, I mean, this is when I have to put on the hat that says like, don't have too many preconceived notions of how this is going to work, and just be open to the process and open to a little bit of like random speckle stuff happening. And that's a little bit what's going on right now, and I'm totally cool with it, because this is a process knit. Like, I'm going to enjoy wearing this, no doubt, but this is very much about having fun with finding a sweater and unraveling it and figuring out what I want to do with the yarn. Like, all of that is what makes this really, really fun. So now that I've just started the stockinette, I'm sure I will start to feel like I'm in a black hole pretty soon, but that's okay. It's great actually, because this is really good mindless knitting. For all my mindless knitting opportunities, I can work on this and just continue to delay work on my husband's socks, my poor long-suffering husband who will never, ever, ever get his socks finished. So those are my whips, or I should say my knitting whips, because I do have a sewing whip to share with you. Pretty exciting, but not yet. Because first we're going to talk about On the Horizon and then Stash Enhancement, and then we're going to talk about sewing. I know, I'm a tease. On the Horizon, all I have to say is I'm pretty sure this is the week I'm going to finally start the Marley. I might do it today. I'm totally feeling it, and I feel like my whips are completely in control, because all I have going on right now is the 2 garments, the pair of socks for my husband, and then the blankets that I always have going. So that's very much manageable. I feel like adding a shawl to the mix is completely fine. And I'm really excited to start it, because it's brioche and it's hedgehog fibers, and like, oh my gosh, what could possibly be more fun than that? I honestly kind of feel like I might have been delaying it a little bit, just because I know that the sooner I start it, the sooner it will be over. And I'm really wanting to like cherish the experience of knitting on it. Like, I don't know if that makes any sense. So another way that I do that in my life, I love Jane Austen. And I've read, so she has 6 novels. I've read 5 of them. I've not read Emma, and I'm going to read Emma, and I just can't seem to start it because when I have finished it, there won't be any more Jane Austen to read, ever. New Jane Austen to read. I can reread her as much as I like, but a lot of people say Emma is their very favorite. And I just like the feeling that it's ahead of me, and at some point I'm going to get to decide, okay, this is the moment in my life where I'm going to be reading Emma for the first time, and how joyous that's going to be. Like, I want to wait for that time when I want it, and I feel like I'm doing the same thing with the Marley Shaw, and it probably sounds completely insane and deranged if your mind doesn't work like that. But there's something about delayed gratification. I don't know, maybe I'm just a total masochist. I don't know what it is. I want to treat myself, and I don't want to miss the treat. I don't want it to slip by before I can take a moment to, recognize that I'm indulging in it. I want to have that moment and that time, and that, it's like how I like to knit on certain projects and do certain special things on the weekend when I have plenty of time, because I can really indulge in it, and it doesn't just zip by the way that sort of evening after work knitting does. It's kind of that. I don't know. Let me know if that makes any sense to you, or if you relate to that at all, because I would be curious to know. And give me your examples, like what things you've saved or are saving or whatever. I'll be very curious to know that. Okay, I guess it's just the day for tangents. It's probably because I haven't podcasted in 2 weeks. Stash enhancement, I have one thing to show you. It's very, very, very exciting. So you know that I love a homespun house yarn. Molly does some of the most beautiful yarn I've ever seen, and I'm usually not like a yarn club person because I'm kind of picky. But with Molly, I feel like I like everything she makes, and it would be very unusual that she would make something and I wouldn't like it. So you know that I was in the local yarn club. I have wanted to join her Harry Potter yarn club. It fills up fast, and it's like if you miss the announcement, it's gone, and I've missed it before. But I caught it this last time that it popped up. And the very first skein came. And if you don't know, Molly does this club in partnership with Sucre Miniatures, who makes beautiful progress keepers and stitch markers that are all like miniaturized food and things. So each month, it's for 3 months, and each month you get a new Harry Potter inspired exclusive yarn that Molly has dyed, and a Sucre miniature progress keeper that is sort of a set with the yarn, and it's inspired by the same kind of thing in Potter. So this one is so cool. First, okay, I'm going to cover up the progress keeper and show you the yarn. It goes without saying, spoiler alert, if you're, in the club and you haven't seen it yet. But you probably have seen it because I got it like last week. Okay, so here's the yarn. Goodness. I mean, the speckling, the colors, so lovely. I want to eat it. It looks like good enough to eat, doesn't it? Well, here is the progress keeper. It's a couple of every flavor beans. And this one is like the exact same colors that are in the yarn. And this is like the green. I mean, is that a perfect, oh, so cute. I can't wait to knit something with it and use the progress keeper. So cute. This is called, it's on her Plump Merino fingering. There's all the information. And it is called Anything Off the Trolley Dears, which is really funny because I actually have Nora George yarn that I think is called anything from the college years, but it might be exactly the same name, which is kind of funny because it's sort of a slightly more obscure thing to name something, just because it's like a direct quote and not like, you know, Hermione or something. Anyway, very interesting that I now have like 2 yarns with the same inspiration source, but they're very different. I just think this is so gorgeous. Really gorgeous. And a perfect progress keeper. So I have no idea what I'm going to make with that yet. But it'll be fun to find out. It's so lovely, even just in the skein. I could just stare at it forever. Okay, time to talk about sewing. I have a work in progress. I started working on this morning. And at some point I had to stop because I had to record the podcast, and I wanted to record it before the sun started going down because bad lighting, not great for knitting podcasts. So this is the Bettine dress by Tilly and the Buttons. Here is the bodice. The bodice is complete. You can see it has a neck made with facing. And it's been top stitched and everything. This neckline, I'm telling you, after doing like knitted garments, it makes me remember like the ways in which knitted garments are easier than woven fabric, which is weird because you always say like beginners should start with woven fabric, and I do think that's true. Like there's ways in which knitted fabric is trickier, but there's also ways in which knitted garments or like knit fabric sewn garments sew up so much faster with these facings and just all of the ways that you have to trim it and do these like little snips and make sure that the curves all work and stuff. When you have some kind of knitted fabric, is just so much more forgiving. So this is a very easy pattern, but it has definitely, it's taking more time. You know, when I zipped up that like Coco dress and top like in the same day, like this is not that. I've been working on this all day and I'm not quite done with it. But it's very easy instructions to follow. And it's an easy pattern. As you can see, there's no set-in sleeve at all. It still looks super cute, the sort of drop sleeve effect. And there's no set-in sleeve to worry about. It has this lovely little cuff. There's an optional tab that I didn't do because I didn't love the look of it. And this cuff, you can see the inside where I've done with pinking shears, and the cuff has been hand stitched. This part took a little bit of time, in 4 places all the way around. And you don't have to do hand stitching. You could just do like an up and down tacking on your machine, but I wanted it to be completely invisible, so I hand stitched it. So that's about all there is to say about the bodice. And I'll show you the skirt. I have the, and this is going to be kind of hard to show, but you know, you'll see it when it's finished. Here's the back of the skirt, just the fabric, just cut out. There you go. And the front of the skirt has this pocket situation that is like impossible to show you because it's like essentially the front of the skirt is going to be this. There, you can almost see it. Oh my god, this is so impossible to show you. I don't even know how to do this. Okay, this is so nuts. There's sort of the curve of it, right? That's the pocket. This is the waist. Other side, you have the same thing. There it is. Same thing going on. I'll show you when I finish it. So this This print, I mean, forget about it. It's so gorgeous. I love this color. Here's something I did that's stupid. The back, very slightly different color than the front. Don't know if you can see it here. Can you see the difference between this and this? This is slightly lighter. Well, the fabric itself, it's very hard to tell the outside from the inside, the right side from the wrong side. See, as you can tell, they're very similar. And I actually accidentally stitched the back portion with the wrong side out because I didn't have great lighting. And by the time I noticed, I had done so much. I did all of the facings and the cuffs, and I was like, nope, not undoing it. That would not be fun. This is about having fun. So I'm just living with it, you guys. I mean, at least it's the back. It's not the front. It's not a huge difference. It's almost like a dye loss situation. Let's just say it's intentional. That's like the dark side of the moon and the light side of the moon. That's what we're gonna go with. It's the new trend. Everyone in Paris is doing it. Okay. Finally, time to do my designer spotlight segment. Yay! I am so excited to talk to you guys about Olga Buraya-Kefalian, which is my very best attempt to pronounce her name. She is the designer of the Kodo, which was the very first sweater that I ever made, pullover that I made for myself. And I have so many of her designs in my favorites on Ravelry, and was marking so many of them before I even realized they were all by the same person. They all just appealed to me so much. So then, of course, I had to go through everything she ever designed and mark all the ones that I loved. She's amazing. So I want to show you a little bit of a variety of the garments that she designs, although she has other things. The garments are just the things that I'm the most excited about. First, she has this whole collection that's all about wearing things in multiple ways, which I love. And my favorite thing from it is the Kika, which is this shawl that can also be a vest. You can wear it several different ways, and it's just really kind of innovative and fun. I think I would only wear it in the main sort of shawl and vest versions and not, like backwards and all the fun stuff that she does with it. But if this is your kind of thing, you've got to look up her whole collection where she does things like this, because she's got a million of them and they are really, really cool. Another pattern of hers that I love is called Apex, and it is this incredible, gorgeous cabled cardigan. I mean, this would be a labor of love, but it would also be like your favorite thing in your entire wardrobe if you had it. I absolutely love the shape of it. She's so smart with shapes, but I love the cable pattern of it too, and the sort of open work lacy bits at the shoulders. It is perfection. Another really fun pattern she has is called Cusp, and that is almost like a circular or like a hexagonal, you know how much I love hexagons, sort of, it's like a sweater or a poncho, but it's the shape of it, the way that it's created is just so fun. And yet you can wear it and it still looks very chic and fashionable. It doesn't look like a gimmick, which is something that I really, really appreciate about her patterns. They're innovative, but they're also fashion forward and wearable. Possibly my favorite sweater of hers is called Nobu, and it has this incredible peplum detail at the sides, gorgeous cabling, beautiful ribbed back. It looks flattering and just like it would be, again, a labor of love that would take a lot of work, but would be something you would absolutely treasure. I'm almost certainly going to very soon make her Coda sweater. I have not bought yarn for it, but I absolutely want to make it in Brooklyn Tweed Shelter in the postcard colorway, which is what it's shown in the photographs. I love the postcard colorway, and I have wanted to use it for something ever since I first saw it, and I love Brooklyn Tweed Shelter. And when I saw this sweater, I absolutely loved it so much. And then when I saw that it was knit up in postcard, I was like, doing it. Absolutely love this. Again, it's like kind of creative and minimal at the same time because of the way that she places the cables on the, to sort of like show a raglan look at the front and then just across the top of the back. It's like the discretion that she uses with her designs, I really, really appreciate. Finally, the thing that I mentioned earlier, this is something that I am planning on making with Quince & Co. Kestrel, and I have actually purchased it, also in the color that's shown in the photos. I feel like I say that I don't do that, but then in practice I do it fairly often. What can I say? I'm a sucker for advertising. Despite the fact that I work in advertising and totally know how the sausage is made. Anyway, this is called Frances, and it's a gorgeous, lovely, wonderful split back. And again, it's done so innovatively because she knits this from side to side, and that allows her to do this really cool garter panel in the front that is vertical lines of garter stitch. She's just so inventive and has such an incredible eye. I think it's really amazing that one designer can understand the sort of construction and engineering of garments so well and also have such an incredible eye for design and aesthetics and fashion. And she really combines both of those skills beautifully. She's one of my absolute favorite designers for sure. So that brings us to chit chat. I'm going to pull out my Ayla and knit on that while I talk to you guys for a few minutes. There isn't much to talk about, honestly, even though it's been a little while. I've just been working a lot, you know, spending time with family, things like that. But I decided that since I talked to you about what I was reading in a past chit chat, and I haven't really updated you or talked again about books in a little while, I would talk about what I'm reading right now because that's a big thing that's giving me a lot of joy at the moment. I'm reading some books that I'm really enjoying. So the first one I want to mention is called Nabokov's Favorite Word is Mauve. Very appropriate for the move along, right? I just discovered this book, and it's really funny because I found it because Kristen, who's co-hosting the Mauve Along and loves Mauve, she mentioned that some viewers had told her about this book called Mauve that's about the man who apparently like created and popularized the color. So I was curious about that, so I searched for it, and I actually found this other book that I got really excited about. This was last week, I think, or no, earlier this week. So basically, I'm very, 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 very into data journalism. If you don't know what that is, think 538. Basically, journalists who take statistics and turn them into stories. And this is a book by a data journalist, and it's all about what you can uncover about various writers based on the sort of computerized examining of their work. So essentially, we have figured out with computers how to basically like identify the fingerprint of a writer, and it's based on mostly usage of like how, you know, you use the word while a lot, like more than other people, or off, or like just these tiny little words that you wouldn't think about. It's not anything that you consciously think is a part of your writing style. It's like weird little personal things that you never would notice. And they have shown that they're like really, really good at matching things up and identifying that something was written by the same writer. And this first got going actually before computers. It was done manually when some statisticians decided that they wanted to, once and for all, in the argument about who had written these certain papers that both, I think it was James Madison and Alexander Hamilton had both claimed to have written. And they analyzed the essays that were known to have been written by both of these men, as well as the ones that were under questioning, and came to the conclusion that James Madison had written all of them and Alexander Hamilton was a big fat liar. And which, if you know anything about him, you're not surprised. Like, I love him, but dude was pretty much, he liked to brag. You've seen the musical. We don't need to talk about it. Anyway, so they figured out how to do this, but it was very, very time consuming. And then came computers, and now you can find out so much interesting stuff. Like, I've just barely started this book, but it's an exploration of this. And like, the first part is all about adverbs, and I don't know if you know, because it's probably not, my husband wasn't familiar with this, like outside of groups of writers, I don't know how well people are familiar with the general consensus kind of advice that you need to really lay back on the adverbs. And like Stephen King said, the road to hell is paved with adverbs. And basically there's this idea that like, great writing uses fewer adverbs and terrible writing uses like too many adverbs. And the concept here, it's not about, adverbs like well and not. It's about the ones that end in ly. It's about how, one novelist will write that a character said something sleepily, which, basically tells you that the character is sleepy, whereas another novelist will write that a character said something and that they were yawning, or their eyes were, bloodshot, or various other descriptors that allow the reader to figure out for themselves that the person is sleepy. So, it's kind of connected to the show versus tell idea, but it's also connected to just like adding bulk to sentences in too many words. A lot of times there are adverbs in there that can easily be taken out and it becomes more concise, which is often also considered, better writing. So he wanted to examine whether there really is a correlation between, what we consider to be great novels and books that don't use a lot of adverbs. And he looked at Ernest Hemingway, who of course is known for his brevity. And he looked at all of these books that are considered great works compared to other less admired works by the same writer, and found these patterns of like the ones that are considered great often had fewer of the ly adverbs. Like, this totally held up, this idea, when you examined it. So I've just barely started it, and like already it's like I want to talk to everybody about adverbs and talk their ear off like I just did to you guys. This is so up my alley, I can't even tell you. Like, statistics and literature. Did someone say, hey, Celeste, I wrote a book specifically for you? Like, because that's how I feel. Very, very into it. So once again, it's called Nabokov's favorite word is mauve. I feel like the writer is Ben Bradley or something like that, but don't quote me on it. If you just Google it, you'll find it. Another book I'm reading, so that's my book on Kindle. My book in paperback that I'm reading is called An Everlasting Meal. And again, I don't remember the name of the author, but if you look that up, you will find it. I suck. I will try to remember to put it in the show notes, both of them. Anyway, it's lovely. I talked all about cooking last week, and this is a book about cooking, but it's not a cookbook, but it does sort of give advice. It's almost like a beautiful meditation on like how she cooks. It's very beautifully written, but it's also very much written by like an expert who knows a lot about cooking and ingredients and loves it. And there's just so much passion. And it's written, I mean, it's essentially, it looks like a novel, like it's that size, and it's written that way. There aren't photos. It's not in any way like a cookbook or a coffee table book. It is like, almost like it's unlike anything I've ever read before, which is why I'm having trouble explaining it. It's nonfiction. It's not exactly narrative, but it's very personal. And it's just, if you love cooking, I feel like, or if you want to love cooking, I would recommend this book. Very, very lovely and good advice, but more than advice, it's like passion. And finally, I'm listening to, so I tend to kind of try to spread out and have like something I'm listening to, something on Kindle, something in paper, and sometimes I'll have a graphic novel going too. I'm listening to Outlander, which I've tried to start before. I don't know why I have struggled with getting into it because I have been enjoying it, but I can't seem to get hooked. Last time I tried to listen to it was the first time I tried to listen to it, which was also the last time. I've only tried one other time. It was about 6 months ago, and I listened to like the first couple chapters, and then I just got sort of distracted by something else, and I stopped. And I knew that I'd come back to it because I was enjoying it, but I wasn't like so addicted that I had to press on, if that makes sense. And now I've started re-listening to it. I started at the beginning again because I wanted to be fresh. And I've made it to about the spot where I stopped last time. But I'm definitely going to keep pressing on. But it's really crazy that I haven't like just immediately gotten addicted, because especially considering the place where I stopped last time and where I'm currently at and yet haven't listened to it in days is the part right where she finally goes back in time. Like there's like 2 chapters of just, we're in Scotland, this is my husband, here's what's going on. And then she travels back in time, and like the moment that happens, I guess I tuned out, which is like, that should be the moment that you're like, oh, I can't wait to see what happens next. I don't know, it almost felt like a good stopping point. Like I knew that everything that had started between her and her husband and everything was going to be put on hold. And so then I was like interested in another book. So I was just like, okay, I'll get back to this later. So weird. I am very much enjoying it. It's not that I'm not. It's just that it's a big book, and I'm a little confused as to why I have not been swept up in it yet, because that's sort of the way people talk about it, is that it sweeps you up. And maybe it's because I just haven't gotten past the sort of beginning yet, and I need to, get deeper in. But the first 2 chapters are like 45 minutes each, and you're thinking like, I'm an hour and a half into this, and she just got back in time, and I'm not feeling swept up. Like I just kind of expected it to grab me a little more. But I am excited to get further in it. I mean, I'm wanting to like watch the show and stuff after I read it, and hopefully I will like it. I know many people do, and I think it would be up my alley. And I like the writing style, so that says something for it, certainly. All right, I guess I'm gonna let you guys go because it looks like it's been about an hour. I'm gonna set down my knitting here. And like I said, thanks so much for joining me. I will hopefully be coming back to you in just one more week. I do have some family stuff this weekend, so it is quite possible that I'm a big fat liar and it'll be 2 weeks, but I'm going to try not to let that happen. And if I do, bear with me. I promise I won't disappear forever without saying anything. Yeah, so come back later and who knows what I'll be working on. All right, check out the Ravelry group if you haven't yet. Join, subscribe, give me the thumbs up, all that good stuff. And thank you for watching. Bye-bye.